नमस्कार दोस्तों, आज के एपिसोड का मुख्य विषय है भारत में धर्म, जाति, अल्पसंख्यकों की स्थिति और सेक्युलरिज्म की बदलती तस्वीर। क्या कॉलोनियल काल ने धर्म और जाति के संबंधों को सिर्फ बदला या उन्हें और अधिक जटिल बना दिया? क्या धर्मांतरण सिर्फ आस्था का विषय था या उसके पीछे गहरे सामाजिक और आर्थिक कारण भी छिपे थे? और सबसे महत्वपूर्ण सवाल, क्या आज का भारतीय सेक्युलरिज्म वास्तव में अपने अल्पसंख्यकों के लिए न्यायिक और संवेदनशील है? इन तमाम गंभीर प्रश्नों की गहराई को समझने के लिए हमने लाइफ एक्सप्रेस के हॉल ऑफ फेम में एक विशेष अनुभव संपन्न अतिथि को आमंत्रित किया है, जो इन सभी मुद्दों पर अपने गहन ऐतिहासिक अध्ययन और रिसर्च के आधार पर व्यापक चर्चा करेंगे और हमें बताएंगे कि कैसे इतिहास वर्तमान को समझने की दिशा देता है। लेकिन उन सब बातों से पहले मैं आज के विशेष अतिथि का एक संक्षिप्त परिचय प्रस्तुत करना चाहूँगा। हमारे आज के विशेष अतिथि हैं डॉक्टर एम क्रिस्थु डॉस। डॉक्टर डॉस का जन्म 13 अक्टूबर 1977 को तमिलनाडु के तिरुनेलवेली में हुआ। बचपन से ही अपनी विलक्षण प्रतिभा एवं उत्कृष्ट कार्यों के बदौलत उन्होंने समाज में अपनी एक अलग पहचान बना ली थी। यदि हम उनके शैक्षणिक जीवन पर प्रकाश डालें तो हम पाते हैं कि उन्होंने अपनी प्रारंभिक, माध्यमिक तथा उच्च शिक्षा अव्वल दर्जे से सफलतापूर्वक पूरी की। More importantly, he did his PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University in history. And to know more about Dr. Doss and his works, I shall take you straight to him. So please join me in welcoming a renowned historian, researcher, and a sharp discussion of social issues, Dr. Christhu Doss. Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar ji. Thank you for
Welcome
inviting.
to Life Express.
Thank you, Sanjay ji.
First of all, on behalf of my entire Life Express team and on behalf of my intellectual viewers, I extend a very warm welcome and sincere gratitude to you for your gracious presence in Life Express. Well, आपके प्रोफाइल को देखने पर पता चलता है कि your research has highlighted the role of Protestant missionaries among the depressed classes in South India. तो आज की चर्चा को शुरू करते हुए ना सिर्फ मैं बल्कि हमारे सभी इंटेलेक्चुअल व्यूअर्स आपसे जानना चाहेंगे कि हाउ डू यू रिस्पॉन्ड टू द क्रिटिक दैट मिशनरी एक्टिविटी merely replaced one form of domination with another rather than enabling genuine social emancipation. Yes, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Sanjay Kumar Jha. I think it's absolutely my pleasure to share my thoughts at a time when the world is spending its energy on war and other materialistic aspects. I think I'm so happy that here is a person, Professor Sanjay Kumar, who wants the world to know about how history needs to be looked at and why it is important now more than ever before. And I absolutely agree with the point that you have been raising. The question, it's very important because the Protestant missionaries or Christianity, this is part of my ongoing research. The question whether Christianity improved material conditions is, of course, subject of, I think, ongoing historical and sociological debate. So the scholars trying to tell us through their, recent research how one should look at the aspect of dominance in a historical perspective. as a student of history, I always believe that every claim needs to be substantiated with evidence, and every extraordinary claim needs to be supported with extraordinary evidence. Having said this, there are research on this particular issue that you're talking about. For example, how worldwide Christianity or missionaries, I'm talking about the colonial time as well as the contemporary times. There were discussions on how Christianity and missionaries were known widely for creating discourse on equality, liberty, and fraternity. And if you look at the idea of God, equality, also have been discussed in various ways. And Christianity is always seen as an instrument of empowering women or the marginalized sections, which I would call depressed classes, largely because I have taken this from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's ideas. And similarly, there are questions which have been explored by missionaries, saying that when a world which is known for racial hierarchy or inequality and injustice, Christianity was always seen as a symbol uh, to deal with the issue of, maybe you can call it slavery, or the issues that women were facing, or in other words, the exploitative nature of the society. But on the other side, you also need to see how missionaries are being looked at as instrument of oppression. For example, there are studies recently, 2025, decolonizing mission, how missionaries were playing important role in expansion of colonialism, Western Empire, and arguing for how in defense of global dominance, and how Christianity and colonialism went hand in hand on various occasions. There were researches on guns, God, and missionaries. And again, this is the latest research, 2025, by, I think,
Interesting.
Basil Hans. And he seeks
Mhm.
to examine how or missionaries, particularly Protestant, and of course Catholic as well, try to extend their helping hand by backing military and political force, by reshaping identities and I think societies during colonial times.
Mhm.
And there were studies on Africa and India and some South Asian countries, how missionaries played a controversial role in helping European expansion. And Africa is a very interesting case study. Now, the largest Christian country in the world could be Africa. As you know,
Mhm.
in that way, how colonialism played an important role. Now, of course, there are studies that tell us that how missionaries can be understood as instrument of development or empowerment or improvement through maybe charity and social welfare and education and knowledge, economic development, human rights. Then you will also understand the materialistic aspect.
Mhm.
But there were also arguments against this notion of improvement, reinforcement of stratification.
Mhm.
When before missionaries, there were, of course, societies that are known for inequality or injustice or slavery. And even
Mhm.
after their conversion to Christianity, you still find that the converts were expected to work in either the coffee estate or tea estate or plantations. And still you find there are lack of policy for the poor, and there is always a possibility of hypocrisy and control by the missionary. And one of the examples that I can give in Indian case, when the missionaries were converting Indians, and the large number of sections were actually from what I would call the marginalized sections, or the underprivileged sections. And roughly the ratio of conversion is maybe 10% from the elite, 20% from the OBC, and the 30% from scheduled castes, and 40% from scheduled tribes. That clearly tell us how the conversion rate and the post conversion scenario. Of course, there were materialistic upliftments, but I find there was still some kind of stigmas and social hierarchies, and the marginalization within Christian fold, and the imposition of a dominance in one way or the other. Uh, Let me give you a very interesting research. 1883, there was a newspaper called Thinker, uh, which I find it very interesting because this is available in Prime Minister Museum and Library. As a student of history, I always like to read the original content. There, I find the very a realistic interpretation about how missionaries and the conversion and the converts dichotomy could be understood. For example, here this particular thinker actually is from Madras in 1880s, 1882. Commenting on converts, the thinker is actually free thinking journal. It stated that most of the missionaries were in India were utterly incapable of discussing anything in a fair and Catholic spirit, and they appealed not to reason but prejudices, not to facts but to passages of scriptures. And whoever differed from them upon what they were pleased to call fundamental truths was, in their opinion, a base or infamous man. So this clearly tells us that how the missionaries were able to create rhetoric or discourse or narratives. And at one level, yes, it changed, the materialistic conditions and the aspirations. But on the other side, they seem to have missed in creating group of people who were known for critical thinking or critical analysis. And how, when the nationalistic sentiments were going on, anti-colonial sentiments were in the 19th century were expressed by nationalist leaders, and their kind of the conversion and the converts and the missionary seem to have gone hand in hand, which for me and my study reveal that in a way directly or indirectly strengthened the colonial theologies and the colonial forms of knowledge.
Very well said, and very thoughtful of you, I'll say. And that will take me to another area of your research, although you have already started discussing that, that is economics of conversion. Considering the economics of conversion, with special reference to your work on rice Christians, how do you balance material motivations with questions of faith, dignity, and resistance while writing the history of conversion without moral judgment? Over to you. Yeah.
Um, Professor Sanjay Kumar, it's a very important and, of course, a controversial topic for exploration. And of course, people who are part of that religious tradition may not be able to be happy about this particular term. It is controversial. But we cannot completely dismiss the reality. Uh, the term rice Christians is, of course, from an insider perspective, it seems to be a derogatory term for individuals who formally convert to Christianity primarily for material benefits. Now, I would like to give a historical background globally. It's not something which is unique in the Indian context. For example, in the 17th century, if you look at some of the early records, English explorer William Dampier, I think, was perhaps the first one to use the term in 1680s or 89 to describe the French Catholic converts, claiming that alms of rice have converted more than their preaching. So preaching was secondary, and alms of rice seemed to have been the primary reason for conversion. And secondly, let's see China. In the 19th and 20th century, the term was widely used by Western missionaries and critics in China. And there were scholars like Pearl Buck frequently, reference Rice Christian in her novels and memoirs. After 1949 revolution, many such converts seem to have publicly renounced their faith under the new communist regime, and they adopted Christianity as part of their life and mission and faith, of course. And in India, therefore, it becomes important. The term is often localized as rice bag Christians or rice Christians. Sometimes these terms are often seen as extremely derogatory, but it is frequently used even by the Portuguese missionaries and the Protestant missionaries. Some of them declined to use this term because they said it is because of their material upliftment. We don't have to call them as rice Christians. For example, Sam Miller, Albion Astin, Robert Woodbray, some of the scholars who have done extensive research on the politics of conversion clearly stated that how at least some point in time healthcare or hygiene or the materialistic aspect in this scenario, my work also, I think, becomes relevant. So repainting religious landscape, I'm sure you must have gone through economics, conversion, rise, refuge, and redemption. This was published in a very interesting journal. My research clearly reveals that at least in the 18th century and the first decades of the 19th century, I'm using economics of conversion primarily because at the time of natural calamities, maybe during the time of floods or famines or drought, many people from, let's say, the marginalized section from Andhra Pradesh, the earlier presidency, and some parts of Tamil Nadu, they sought to embrace Christianity primarily for materialistic consideration, and because missionaries were well equipped with, the financial aspect and the materialistic conditions, and they were able to provide them at the time of need. And once their materialistic aspirations were fulfilled, and they were instances where those who converted to Christianity had gone back to Hinduism also. So we have that as well. And therefore, it is important that how Christianity is not a monolithic construct. That's what my argument. You have a range of differences in terms of the religious denomination, the Catholic, Protestant, and within which you also have this unclassified rice Christians. So which is not classified in under any of the census reports, but there were references in church missionary records, London missionary records, the Society for the Propagation of
Mhm.
Gospel, and various primary records seem to suggest that yes, there were a group of people who are willing to
Mhm.
embrace Christianity for materialistic consideration. I'm
Very
not
interesting.
denying
Yeah.
that the spiritual dimension of it. There were
Mhm.
people who are also, of course, embracing Christianity for maybe spiritual impulse. I'm not completely
Mhm.
dismissing the spiritualistic nature.
Mhm. Excellent. I really appreciate the transparency and the conviction with which you are talking. I really appreciate that. This is what we require, in academic forum. Well, you argue for a transition from the Christianization of India to the Indianization of Christianity. So, in today's polarized political climate, how relevant is this idea? And do you think Indian Christianity has been allowed to fully Indianize or indigenize?
Yes, yes. I think it's a very interesting question. Why I have used this binary Christianization of India and Indianization of Christianity.
Hmm. It's
Again,
very interesting. I like it.
yeah, we need to see in a global context, and I would like to historicize it because when Protestantism became, contesting religious denomination within Christianity. And in the 16th century, 95 thesis, Martin Luther King was racing against the authority of Pope of the Catholic Church. Since then, the Protestantism was able to influence colonialism. See, always you find the popular rhetoric, the West was always known for 3G. One is God, the second G is for gold, and the third G is for glory. So God is always becoming part of the colonial rhetoric, the idea of God. So they always used to make use of this idea of God, glory, and gold, and within which they try to contextualize biblically. And most of the Protestant missionary societies were formed accordingly. And the Protestant societies that I was pointing out, Church Missionary Society or London Missionary Society or Society for Propagation of Gospel or Society for the Propagation of Christian Knowledge, among other things. These are organizations formed particularly after the arrival and the emergence of Protestantism. And I find in my research there's a kind of connection or a complex and intricate interconnectedness between colonialism and missionaries. For example, wherever the Portuguese empire were set up, Portuguese missionaries used to go. Wherever you find the Dutch colonies, the Dutch missionaries. The Danish colonies, Danish missionaries. British colonies, British missionaries. And the French colonies, French missionaries. So now what does it indicate? This whole idea was Christianization of the world. One is colonizing the mind, and another one is Christianization of the world. And in India, it is particularly relevant, largely because the British colonialism, in my research, I always find seemed to have been an invisible Protestant empire. You may not be able to see religion there, but the missionaries and colonial bureaucracy often seem to have exchanged their ideas. Let me give you an example. Uh, we all know about the abolition of sati. How did this happen? Because there is a close connection between colonial bureaucracy and missionary politics.
Mhm.
How this the socio religious reform movements, that's one level, and here the colonialism and missionaries often tried to operate the idea of education, the idea of empowerment, the idea of moral development or enhancement often had a moral tone which was jointly articulated by the colonial British and Empire. And
Mhm.
therefore, this idea of Indianization of Christianity becomes important. I'm
Mhm.
not here trying to be political because most of the religious wars are always fought in the name of God. And here, India may not have seen religious wars like the way wars of crusades took place in the West.
Mhm.
And maximum blood was shed in the name of religion. Christianity, otherwise Islam, or Protestant versus Catholic. So, I concern here is there is a need in the 19th century and the 20th century. This was taking place when a person called Azaria, he was perhaps the first Indian clergy. He said, "Okay, when I was looking for responsibility, the British missionaries refuted.
Mhm.
And when he was going to missionaries and approached him, he said, 'You are an Indian and you have your own limitation.' Then Azaria felt that we need to Indianize Christianity. This is a call given by an Indian clergy. He said, we should not rely on foreign money, foreign missionaries, foreign individuals to come and preach. We should Indianize Christianity, which is why the first Indian Missionary Association and Missionary Sangam society started emerging in the first decades of the 20th century. So later, the Christianity also started adopting the ashram models. You don't have to have the church like atmosphere, and it's always accommodation, absorption, and assimilation of whatever the Hindu cultural practices, and you can take it and you can try to indigenize it instead of always looking up the West.
Mhm.
There, superfluous changes, the hymns, the instruments, the music, the vocals, and the theology and the spiritual connection. There's everything need to be Indianized. And this is, I think, very important movement in the first few decades of the 20th century. And my interest also tells us that it is needed because otherwise, the Christian community also can, at any point in time, become part of the communal politics, claiming individual rights and the separate recognition or communal representation.
Mhm.
And I think this is very important. And the clash of cultures can be avoided, and the imperialistic, the legacy that is always attached towards Christianity can be minimized, and colonialism and Christianity often in the colonial time is found to be intricately interconnected. And now I can say that yes, this is a religion which is deeply rooted in the Indian soil, and therefore it should be Indianized and indigenized
Mhm.
and localized. You can call it by any name.
Very true. Very true. I think if I have my way, I will talk more of, humanization of India
Of
today.
course.
Excellent. But I love this Indianization of Christianity, this concept.
Great, thank you.
Well, so we have a time constraint, so I'll take a last question and then we will conclude this session.
Mm,
Uh, Given rising majoritarianism and identity politics,
mm.
do you see composite culture as a historical reality? a fragile ideal, or a concept that needs redefinition today? Yes, sir.
Well, I am actually not a fan of this majority minority dichotomy, to be frank with you, because as a student of history, I know how India is always known for Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
Very true.
It is a noble idea. The world is a one family, and it is India that has given the idea of the welfare of all and the happiness of all. And therefore, I always try to trace the history, how and where we were lacking, how this majority minority concept started emerging, and when. And in my research, I find that yes, it is during colonial time. And of course, Mughal time, they were all rulers. And there, the question of majority minority was not discussed much. But during the colonial British, they are always trying to say, we are rulers and we are trying to defend the interest of the minority. They were the one who created the minorities, the concept of minority. And they were the one who always, tried to claim that they were the guardians of minorities. And therefore, I find a dichotomy. I am very much interested to explore the ideas of the frontier Gandhi. I'm sure you're aware of Abdul Ghaffar Khan.
Yes, Simant
And
Gandhi.
he was
Yeah.
the one who said this minority majority is actually a myth and it's a colonial construct.
Mm.
And why do we need to see these things in binary to minority and majority? And therefore, this term itself is not Indian. It is neither Sanskrit or nor any other Indian language. It is actually a Latin term which is used later, popularized in French, and 1919, the Paris Peace Conference started talking about it. And I am particularly interested because it has been mentioned in the constitution only 4 times, but we do not know whether it is linguistic minority or religious minority. But since it is there in the Indian constitution, I am of the opinion that Sardar Patel and Dr. Ambedkar's views need to be understood and worked on. For example, Sardar Patel used to propose a formal he did not define minority, but he defined as an advisory committee of the fundamental rights of minorities. It said it should be based on safeguarding the cultural and religious and educational rights of communities. And similarly, Ambedkar also was always explaining that one man, one vote, one value. It's always about political democracy. He emphasized, okay, of course, we achieved political democracy, but we also need to achieve social democracy, and which is liberty, equality, fraternity. And recently, the government also trying to do away with the majority minority concept, which is what my guess is all about by using this sabka saath, sabka vikas, are together with all, development of all,
Yeah,
trust
that
of.
is our age-old conviction of equality and coexistence. So we have
Absolutely.
had this in past. Yeah.
So I think we need to revive that. In the
Right.
more we
Right.
revive this Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and the welfare of all, the happiness of all, I think this minority, majority, I don't think. Because in the Northeast, people always claim that a section of religious group always try to dominate. And there we cannot say who is a majority, who is a minority. In
Yeah.
some districts of South, you find Muslims are majority. So I am not someone who is completely, convinced by this binary of majority and minority, because it's
Right.
a land that we always nourish and cherished largely because of its wonderful ideal called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So I will be
Very
the happy
sensible of you.
if we
Very,
all of
very sensible of you, sir. बहुत ही
this.
अच्छा, बहुत अच्छा. So, समय की थोड़ी मर्यादा है, इसलिए हम इस सत्र की समाप्ति करेंगे. And to conclude our interaction, now, as usual, I request all our guests, and I'm requesting you also to kindly give a message of peace and progress for society and mankind at large, so that we could create a better human, a better society, a better nation, a better planet for a better tomorrow. Over to you, sir.
Sure. I think the question largely we should ask ourselves, and particularly India, in essence, India is not inherently violent, but struggles with complex internal, external factors that seem to be preventing it from being among the world's most peaceful nations, one of the most peaceful nations. But of course, there are challenges and internal security issues, border disputes, urban crime, or discriminations on various grounds, poverty and unemployment. And I was going through a global peace index. I'm sure we are aware of it, 2025. India seems to be in 1/6 position of 163 countries. And now my hunch is that, of course, there are various aspects that are involved in it. I'm not going to comment on it. And always I am reminded of what is the noble ideal that is enshrined in Bhagavad Gita. The best message which I have been trying to follow is how a person who gives up all material desires and lives free from a sense of greed, proprietorship, egoism, will be able to attain perfect peace. I don't know whether this is possible in this materialistic world, but I think one should always remind ourselves every now and then how this also reminds me of what Gandhi said, because India is always a country known for Sanatan Dharma, which is eternal values. My definition of Sanatan Dharma is nothing but ethics for everyday life. So how can we be simple? Simplicity, service, self-reliance, spirituality. I think all these four aspects can help us to cultivate peace, because at the end of the day, peace and war are man-made institutions. So when we think of these ethics for everyday life, simplicity, service, spirituality, self-reliance, I'm sure definitely peace can be attained by every, irrespective of caste, community, religion, creed, and so on and so forth. Because these ethics seem to be lacking. Let us revive this ethics, Sanatan, and I'm sure definitely we'll be able to see some kind of changes in the society.
Very thoughtful of you, sir. और
Thank
मुझे
you.
पूरी उम्मीद है कि आपके हर शब्द हमारी युवा पीढ़ी के लिए प्रेरणादायक साबित होगी, खासकर हमारे बडिंग हिस्टोरियंस आपके हर सुझाव से लाभान्वित होंगे और उस पे अमल भी करेंगे. So once again, we are immensely grateful to you for your scholarly presence with us today. और शिक्षा जगत में आपके उत्कृष्ट और सराहनीय कार्यों के लिए लाइफ एक्सप्रेस की जुड़ी ने आपके लिए एक अवार्ड की घोषणा की है, और वो अवार्ड है लाइफ एक्सप्रेस अवार्ड ऑफ आइकॉनिक एकेडमिशियन. और आपकी इस उपलब्धि पर मैं आपको अपने इंटेलेक्चुअल व्यूअर्स की ओर से ढेरों बधाई देता हूं, Heartiest
जी,
congratulations. God willing, we
thank
shall meet again in some other academic forum. Thank you for
sure.
connecting with us today. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Professor Sanjay. Thank you so much.
LXP Award of Iconic Academician is proudly presented to Dr. Christhu Doss for his exemplary contributions to Indian academia on 20th February 2026.
आज के सत्र की समाप्ति मैं फिर एक आह्वान के साथ करूंगा, खासकर डॉक्टर क्रिस्थु डॉस की बातचीत से निकले कुछ मुख्य अंश को लेकर। सबसे पहले he emphasized over the need for evidence-based claims in historical analysis. He also discussed the economics of conversion. Further, he talked about his concept of Indianization of Christianity as opposed to Christianization of India. He notes that colonial powers often used missionaries to colonize minds and Christianize the world. The idea of Indianization of Christianity, advocated by early Indian clergy like Azaria, calls for Christianity in India to be self-reliant, adapting to Indian cultural practices and theology rather than depending on foreign money or missionaries. This movement aimed to integrate Christianity into Indian soil, avoid communal politics, and minimize its imperialistic legacy. At the end, in his message for peace and progress, Dr. Doss acknowledges India's internal and external challenges despite its potential to be a peaceful nation. He draws inspiration from the Bhagavad Gita's message of attaining peace by giving up material desires, greed, proprietorship, and egoism. He also refers to Gandhi's philosophy defining Sanatan Dharma as ethics for everyday life, imbibing 4S: first, simplicity; second, service; third, self-reliance; and fourth, spirituality. He believes that cultivating these ethics can lead to peace. With those deliberations of Dr. Christhu Doss, we conclude this episode here और मिलते हैं अगले एपिसोड में समाज के एक और रोल मॉडल के साथ. Till then, enjoy your time meaningfully और हाँ, अपना और अपनों का भी ख्याल रखें. जय हिंद.